Today, Donald Trump gave a speech at the Detroit Economic Club and decided to follow that up, decided to double down on the crazy and disaster that was his speech with a bit of a Q&A, a bit of a town hall. And as we know on this show, there is nothing worse that Donald Trump can do for his campaign than open his mouth. But when it comes to opening his mouth, somehow his interviews are even worse than his speeches, and that is exactly what happened today. The little Q&A that he did went so badly, so quickly, and just exposed how badly Donald Trump's brain has broken, and you can really just see it collapse on stage, and the interviewer is just left so shocked, and we are going to get into all of that. But before we do, if I can quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and want to be a part of the community we're building here, hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way. Now let's get into this clip.
It's a little bit that, I think, more than anything else. And I enjoy what I do, and I love this, despite I could be right now in the most beautiful ocean on the sand, exposing my really beautiful body, so beautiful, to the sun and the surf, skin cancer, right? To the sun and the surf all over the world. And or I could be in Detroit with you, and I'd rather be in Detroit with you, okay?
That's great. Thanks.
Is this the closing message of the campaign, that he has a beautiful body? Ugh, that should be sorry, even saying that makes my skin crawl, that he should be on a beach somewhere? We are happy to send you off to a beach somewhere as long as we do not have to see you with your shirt off, Donald. But again, this is the messaging of the campaign. Donald Trump doesn't know where to direct any of his thoughts because he has so few of them, and any ones that he can get out are just absolute word salad nonsense. But this is the type of thing we continue to see when Donald Trump is asked questions, and we can see him start to collapse, and we're going to check it out in just a bit. But with this question right here.
You do with your children to make them so responsible and so involved in everything that you do?
Well, I'm fortunate in that, they're smart children. Many of you have smart, and some will have some that aren't so smart, and you have to understand that happens too, and that's all, and you're going to love them just as much. But, I have smart children, and they've been good academically, et cetera, et cetera. But very importantly, I would always tell them, no drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes. No drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes. And they'd go out, and Ivanka would say, Dad, stop telling me that. I said, I'm going to tell it to you every time I see you. I'm going to drive you wild with this. You're going to, no drugs, no alcohol. And I would say that. And I hope that, because who knows, right? But they don't have any of those problems. I mean, I've seen friends, very smart people, they have smart kids, but their kids get hooked on drugs or they get hooked on alcohol. Alcohol is, in many ways, like they tell me, I don't know. I never had a glass of alcohol. I had a brother who was a wonderful guy, but he had an alcohol problem. And he sort of do the same. He said, don't ever drink alcohol. He was, and he smoked, and I put cigarettes in that same category, almost that same category, but they're certainly not good for you. But I would always tell my kids, because I've seen parents that had brilliant children, went to the best schools, they were great, but they got hooked on drugs or alcohol, and they never made it. They couldn't compete, basically. They never made it. And many of them are dead. Many of them die. They die with this.
So he says that his advice for his kids is no drugs, no alcohol. But the last time I checked, Don Jr. still is your son, right? I'm not sure if that advice exactly landed. I'm not accusing Don Jr. of anything, but there are certainly some bits of speculation out there, and with his appearance and the way he talks and acts, I don't know. We don't need to get into all of that, but that was kind of a non-answer from Donald Trump. But the answer got even weirder, and this is the moment where we see the complete collapse of his brain, where he goes from talking about his kids. Again, the question was about his kids, and somehow he gets into executions. Yes, it is absolutely insane. We just got to take a look.
Maybe it's too much for the American people to go with, but I will say this. The only countries that solve their drug problem, China, I went to presidency, I said, so, first time I met him, I said, do you have a drug problem? No. 1.4 billion people. And why don't you have a drug problem? He says, death penalty, quick trial. What's a quick trial? The dealer is immediately put on trial. They don't have 9 years of legal and then another 9 years of appeals, 22 years later, and then they're released. No, this is, they don't play games, and, it's a tough deal. But he said, quick trial. I said, what is quick trial? Immediate trial. And you know what the drug dealers do? They say, hey, let's get the hell out of here fast. They don't play games. They don't play games. They even send the bullet to the family, and they make them pay for the bullet. They make them pay for the bullet. It's vicious, but they have no drug problem. With 1.4, they had a drug problem for centuries, with the poppy fields, with all the things. And they realized countries were taking them over that were much smaller, they were being decimated because everybody they had a tremendous drug problem. But it stopped years ago, and it was the death penalty. And I can tell you, we could set up all the committees, blue ribbon, and headed by so-and-so, a society person from Madison Avenue. But I will tell you that it's a waste of time. The only thing that's going to stop, and we got it down, I got it down.
Donald Trump was asked about his children, and in an 8-minute answer that he gave, and I didn't want to play the whole thing because I cannot stand to listen to him for maybe more than a minute. But in the 8-minute answer he gave, he got from, how did I raise my children, to we have to execute the drug dealers and not give them a trial. This man has completely lost it. He is doing everything possible to fearmonger, everything he can to create these ridiculous scenarios to scare his base and to intimidate people. It is just utter nonsense coming out of his mouth all the time. And we can see it when he's asked a question that he can't keep his mind on any given message. And at a economic club speech or interview, you would expect Donald Trump to try to talk about the economy a little bit, although he surely can't because his economic record is so damn bad. But it got even worse with this trail of thoughts that he goes down when he was asked about advice he'd give to his younger self and really didn't know what to say.
What advice to your 25-year-old self would you give to the young people today, and especially the ones in this audience?
Okay, so I met some people backstage who were young and some really beautiful people, great people, smart as can be from colleges and schools. And I think what I'd do is I'd listen to the speech I made, and I'd say maybe, because they really would like to stay here. They grew up here. And I'd follow. And I will say this, if I implement, and I will be able to do it, I will. If we win the election, I would stay right here, and I would follow the gravy train, because you're going to have such a great opportunity right in the area that you want to be. You want to be here because your grandparents here and your parents are here, and people are there. They don't want to leave. They've been forced to leave this area because of politicians that didn't know what they were doing. I would say stay tuned for a little while. Let's see what happens in the election. This area will be thriving like probably almost no area in the country. I think this area will be one of the hottest areas in the country. And I think you can stay here. You'll get a great job because we're going to have a lot of opportunities right here in Michigan, and you want to stay here because of your parents. A lot of them really, they told me backstage, I'd love to stay here, but there's no real jobs here. And when you look at those horrible statistics with the auto workers and with the, what's happening to the industry, you understand it. But
this is exactly why Donald Trump wouldn't sit down for 60 minutes, because in a softball interview with clearly one of his stooges, clearly someone who likes him, just throwing the easiest questions at him, he can't keep a thought straight. He is just ranting, rambling, and out of control. And he just seems as insane, really, as he is. And so that's why they're so afraid to get him in any setting in which his handlers don't have complete control of him, because he just says absurd things. And of course, we saw more of that right here.
He was going to impose the maximum penalty on people that run companies that sell us through Mexico. Almost all of it comes through Mexico. And the maximum penalty is the death penalty. And he was going to impose that. And then we had the transfer power. And this guy came in and he didn't know what to do with anything. And so that went down the tubes. But one of the first things I'm going to do is talk to him about that, because they were going to give the death penalty to anybody sending fentanyl into this country. And that would have really solved a lot of the problem. And
let's just take a second to acknowledge how strange it is that he's referring to the 2020 election simply as a transfer of power. It's just such a weird way to phrase that. And of course, we see Donald Trump talking about this upcoming election in stranger ways and, of course, more dishonest ways every single day, talking about how he'd win California if Jesus Christ came down and decided to count the votes. He'd win Illinois, he'd win New York. And we can't just laugh and point out how strange the ways he talks about the 2020 election and this upcoming election are. We have to point out that he's not just trying to sow doubt, but he is explicitly trying to intimidate election officials, because Donald Trump doesn't want to win votes. He wants to steal them. That's what we saw him try to do in 2020 with his alternate slate of electors. No, they were fake electors. They were corrupt electors. They were illegal electors. That's what he wants to do again. And so we have to continue to call out these lies, and we're going to every single day on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.